From Beam Media in Dallas, Texas, this is the Jack Attack, and I am your host, Jack Everett. And today I want to talk about Netflix's new series, The Society. This is going to be a very spoiler-heavy presentation. So, The Society is a Lord of the Flies / Lost-inspired teen drama. The premise of the show is that a bunch of teenagers from the local high school in this town called Newham go on a field trip, but then the field trip gets canceled due to weather. And when they come back, they find all the adults are gone and all the young kids are gone. And of course, these kids do what any kid would do. They just behave totally irresponsibly, and they get drunk, have sex without consequence, cuss a lot, all this sort of teenage debauchery that's going on anyway, but normally parents are there to keep things under control. But they aren't here, and that is the premise of the show. And so there's basically two things going on in the show. There is the whole teen drama, teen soap opera type drama of, oh, this girl likes this guy, but that guy likes another girl, but that girl's in a relationship with someone else, blah, blah, blah. All of this sort of type crap that I don't even care about at all. And then there is the overarching mystery of the show, which is what happened to this town that these kids move into. And of course, since the kids are on their own, they have to govern themselves. They have to form a society. I watched the first episode and it's like, yeah, a bunch of annoying teens, but at the very end of the episode, it actually got kind of good. So these kids go to the road. They try to drive out of town, but at the road at the edge of the town is just trees. There's just trees there. There's just a forest there. The road doesn't go anywhere. So some of the kids decide to go out on an expedition to figure out where the heck they are. So they walk out into the woods. And one of the girls, she gets bit by a snake and dies. And that is how the episode ends. And so even though it was a bunch of annoying teenagers, that kind of got me like, okay, yeah, I'll watch the rest of this series. I mean, people are dying, so this could be very interesting. But the third episode is where I sort of realized that this show was something I was not going to like. Because in this episode, one of the characters, her name is Cassandra, and I think she was the class president, but I might be remembering wrong. She decides to take lead of the entire situation, and she sets forth these ground rules. And some of her rules seem reasonable, like she's gonna have food be rationed and stuff like that. But there's actually one rule in particular that was just utterly moronic, and it was sort of the reason why I didn't like the character Cassandra, and it was the reason I wouldn't like the so-called good guys of the shows. So Cassandra is supposed to be the good character, the smart character, the wise leader, and that's how she's presented. But she comes up with this idea for the town that is so insane that it's like no one would follow Cassandra after coming up with this rule. They're in a town with a bunch of houses, so every kid could just have their own house. But she's like, well, we don't know if we're going to run out of water or electricity, so we're just going to jam-pack everybody into as few houses as possible. And so she comes up with this brilliant idea to put 5 kids in a single bedroom in a house. So she's going to put like 20 kids in every house, 20, 30 kids in every house, so that they'll only be using like 5 or 6 houses. And this is all to conserve electricity or whatever. And immediately when this happened, I was like, no, I would not. No one would follow Cassandra. There's this one character, Harry, and Harry grew up rich and he had a big old house, and all of a sudden he's got 20 roommates and he's irritated. And the show is trying to present it as if Harry is a D-bag for being irritated that all of a sudden he has to have 20 roommates when previously, he was just a spoiled rich kid. Well, let me tell you about something. I wasn't a spoiled rich kid, and I wouldn't want to have 20 roommates either. So I was on Harry's side. If the show is trying to make Harry look bad, I doubt you would find many people that disagree with Harry on this point. And that was kind of the most annoying part of the show, where I was just so irritated with the good guys of the show that I was kind of like, yeah, I'm never going to like the show. I'm going to be rooting for the bad guys the whole time. And I'll talk more about the bad guys in a bit. But so this third episode, though, did give me some hope because Cassandra gets murdered at the end of the episode. And I'm like, oh man, another death. And this time it's murder. It's like the first death was just an accident. This death is murder. Like, this is exciting. And so naturally the next episode goes into this whole investigation of who done it. Originally they think maybe it's a conspiracy among all the people that disagreed with Cassandra that were up to it. They think it might have been Harry, partly Harry in a conspiracy, and this other kid named Campbell. But it actually turns out to be a character that I don't even know if he even appeared in any episodes previously. It might have been a character just introduced for that episode, named Dewey. And so they arrest Dewey. And as a society, they do try to be fair. They put him on trial. He gets convicted. He is guilty, so it makes sense to convict him. And then I think in the next episode, they execute him. And that was a great point of drama, too, when they executed him, because it was extremely intense. All right, so Thanksgiving dinner. The next thing I want to talk about is another good part of the series, and it is that Thanksgiving dinner comes up. And there is this guy, Campbell. And early on in the series, in like the first 1 or 2 episodes, Campbell starts courting this girl named Ellie. And courting is a very generous way to put it. And he ends up in an abusive relationship with her. And it is both like, it's very emotionally abusive, for sure, but it's also somewhat physically abusive. Like at one point, Campbell pushes her underwater to make her think he's going to drown her. But then he lets her up at the last minute. So it's both an emotionally and a physically abusive relationship. Thanksgiving dinner comes up and Ellie figures this is her chance to get rid of Campbell. So she puts a cup of antifreeze in this pumpkin pie that she's baking for Campbell because she knows that he knows that she doesn't like pumpkin pie, but he likes it. So only he's going to eat it. So it's her opportunity to poison Campbell. But then last minute, Campbell decides they're going to go to the group Thanksgiving dinner. And so he takes her pie there to the group Thanksgiving dinner. And the whole time Ellie is like looking at this pie, making sure no one's eating the pie. But eventually the pie gets out and everyone is eating this pie. And that is another great, intense moment that the series had. But this poisoning, this mass poisoning of all these kids, and I mean, I guess realistically speaking, only about 8 people would have eaten from the pie, but this mass poisoning is like, yeah, this is exciting. Like, this is really good drama. This is way more exciting than all that lovey-dovey, I love her, he loves her, whatever crap that we've been watching previously, because this is the kind of stuff that is intense, and I like intense stuff. And of course, Campbell doesn't eat the pie at all, so Campbell's not going to get sick, but Ellie eats a bunch of the pie because she's like, well, if everyone else is going to get sick, then I want to get sick too and possibly even die from it. All right, so before I go into my final thoughts on the end of the series, because the end of the series is where I take most issue with, I want to talk about each of the characters in this show, because I mean, this is a teen drama. And I say teen drama loosely because like this TV show is rated like TVMA or whatever, because like these kids just, they cuss relentlessly. I mean, this show is the reason why I can't stand swear words. Kids use swear words because they think it makes them feel more adult, but then they go on to use them as adults. And so really, swears are not an adult thing. Swears are just a childish thing that adults continue doing. And these kids are just relentlessly irritating in this show with all of their swears. But let's talk about all of the different characters. This first character, Becca, wow, that's an interesting outfit for someone that's playing a high school student. Okay, so this character, Becca, is just sort of the pregnant girl. She didn't get pregnant or anything after the event happened that made all the parents get disappeared. She was pregnant the whole time. And so it's just classical drama. But I don't want to talk about this kid, Sam. This kid, Sam, is the deaf kid. This kid, Sam, is played by a deaf actor, which I had a feeling that that was the case when I was watching the show. I'm like, I got a feeling that the actor for Sam is also deaf. And this guy's okay. The character's okay. It's a little annoying to watch someone signing because for some reason every single friend of his knows how to sign. And I'm like, I don't know. I know one person that knows how to sign. Like, I could understand his family members knowing how to sign, but he actually has a family member in this show. Campbell, who I spoke of previously, is his brother, but there's nothing in this show that says that Campbell ever bothered learning how to sign. And based on the character Campbell, he wouldn't have bothered to learn how to sign. I can't imagine. But all of his friends know how to sign, so it's just the weirdest thing about this character, Sam. I guess that's what bothers me the most. Oh, this girl, Helena. Helena? How do you pronounce this name? Helena? Okay, so this girl, she is the religious girl. And by religious, I mean the fake Hollywood religion where they use the symbol of the cross, but every other part of the religion has nothing to do with Christianity. She's your classical, hypocritical Hollywood type religious girl. She's like against premarital sex at first, but then she's like, I guess I'm for it now. Okay, so Will. Will is the pretty boy. And I want to talk about this Will guy because Will serves almost no purpose whatsoever in this show. All Will really does is that every time Allie is upset about something, Will shows up with his concerned face. And that's it. Like every time you see Will just has this concerned face. I call him concerned face pretty boy. That is who Will is. Like, watch the show. I recommend watching the show and just look at the expression on his face. It is the same concerned expression all the time. It's something like this. And that is Will for you. That is all Will does in the whole show. All right, so this character Lexi. Lexi shows up at the end of the series, and I'll get into that because it seems like she just sort of shows up at the end to serve a role. I don't remember her in the earlier episodes. This is the character Ellie that I was talking about. And keep in mind, these photos are not really photos of the characters. This is just photos of the actors, so you're not really seeing what they look like in the show. Harry is the character I empathize with the most in all of this. And I wasn't rich like Harry. I didn't have an expensive car. My family's house wasn't huge. The one thing that I did empathize with Harry is, though, I had my own room growing up. And because I had my own room growing up, I just completely empathized with Harry when he got his room taken away from him. And I'll talk more about what happens with Harry and also that other girl later. And this girl I don't even recognize, Kelly. I can't tell from this actress's photograph which character she actually is in the show. But this guy Gordy is, I mean, you can tell from here, he's a fairly handsome kid. But he's like the dork, the doofus. Like everyone, all the other girls are making fun of him behind his back. And it's just kind of funny where he's actually really handsome, but they just say he's a dork. So you're like, oh yeah, I guess he's a dork. Gordy's an all right character. I don't like that Gordy just blindly agrees with the character that leads it all, Allie. But other than that, he's mostly a pretty decent character. He's not irritating like some of the other characters. And then Cassandra. Of course, Cassandra I can't stand because she came up with the stupid rule of having everyone have 5 roommates. And that was it. That was it for me. And of course, Allie. Allie is the main character of the show, and Allie is... No one would follow Allie. I mean, that's the simple reality. No one ever acknowledges that maybe some of the rules are stupid. Realistically, if this society was forming, someone would acknowledge and say, some of the rules are dumb. Let's not do them. And Allie doesn't acknowledge that. She changes absolutely nothing. She's just like, what would my sister do? She's always like, what would my sister do? That's what I'll do, even if it's not what I want to do. Okay, and so this character, who is this? Bean. I am kidding. I know who she is. She's just the character that's always there, but doesn't really play that important role. All right, this is Campbell, and this is not what he looks like in the show at all. Campbell has cool hair in the show. This is just a photo of the actor. And Campbell is the most interesting character in the show. He's the sociopath. He's the psycho. He's the one that secretly wants to manipulate everyone else so that he gets his way. He's a terrible person, but he's also a likable person, at least for the audience. I suppose in real life, most people wouldn't like him, but as an audience member, we like him because he's interesting. You know, when you're sitting down to watch a show, I don't think you care if a character is a good guy or a bad guy. You mostly care if they're interesting to watch. That's the most important thing. And Campbell is an interesting character to watch. So this guy deserves just a lot of props for doing a great role in making this character so enjoyable to watch. You want him to succeed, you know, for the most part. I mean, except for like the abusive relationship that he's in. But everything else, like, you want him to succeed. And that's the type of character he is. And then, of course, there is Grizz. Grizz is the type of guy where it's like, yeah, I could see me being like Grizz. He's kind of like, I'll follow Allie since she's the leader. I don't necessarily know if she's right or wrong, but it seems okay. And then Luke is like, he's just like your standard, ordinary, drunken butthole jock. Okay, he's not really that much of a butthole. So now that we've talked about all the characters, I want to talk about the ending of the show. So what happens in the end of the show is that finally Allie is like, okay, you know what? I have been kind of a dictator. And at least I'm being perceived as a dictator. I know I'm being perceived as a dictator. So we're going to have an election. And of course she assumes she's just going to win the election. And that guy Will is always like telling her, oh, yeah, I mean, if you have an election, they'll just vote for you. They all like you. And when Will said that to her, I was like, I don't think they all like her. Like, honestly, you look at the policies. And I'm like, I wouldn't vote for Allie. And I'm coming from a place of, I'm a one-ticket voter as far as this society is concerned. And the one ticket that I would vote on is, do I get to have my own freaking house to myself or not? And that's it. That would be the be-all, end-all for who I would vote for in this election. And so the elections ends up being Allie, of course, is running, and Harry is running, and then Lexi is running. And when I was talking about the characters, I didn't have much to say about Lexi because she more or less just sort of showed up in the last few episodes to be a contender in the election. Lexi ends up being really sympathetic, and so the exit polls say that Lexi is going to win the election. Because Harry was basically... Harry I would have voted for, because Harry's one ticket was, yeah, you get to have your own house. And then Lexi just sort of jumps into the election, and she basically pulls the old... let's sling a bunch of mud at Allie campaign. So her whole campaign isn't even about issues. It's just about how bad Allie is. So yeah, I would have probably voted for Harry just because Lexi seemed crazy based on the way she did her campaigning. But Harry at least was going to give me what I wanted. So I would have voted for him. But what actually happens is that there's a coup d'etat. I would have participated in the coup d'etat. It's like I couldn't stand Allie's leadership. And of course, after she gets thrown out, the first thing that happens is all the roommates move out into their own houses. And I'm like, yeah! They finally get their own houses. That's all they wanted from the start, was their own houses. And they finally get it. And I rejoiced. And they rejoiced. To be clear, the whole coup d'etat was Campbell's idea. As I said, Campbell, the character that you love to hate. The coup d'etat was all his masterminding behind the scenes to get the various characters to make it happen. But I'm happy with how things turned out. You know, I can rest easy knowing that the cliffhanger ending where Campbell and his band of unknowing followers took over the town, I'm happy knowing that that's how that's how things turned out. As far as the society goes. Now, as far as the overarching mystery in the show as to where these kids are, nothing was resolved. Instead, in the last 2 or 3 minutes of this series, it all of a sudden cuts to a grown adult woman, and she walks into what appears to be a library, and she starts reading Peter Pan to some little kids. And I don't know who the little kids were. I don't know who that woman was. And I mean, my guess is maybe she was one of the parents. Maybe the kids were like the younger siblings. Maybe this whole scene takes place 100 years in the future when the characters are old and there was some grandma and they had kids, because there was this plaque on the wall that says remember something, and it had the list of all the names of all the characters. And so it's like, does that mean remember the people that disappeared? Does that mean remember some people that lived in the past and this is the future? I don't know. I don't know what it was. So anyway, this has been my thoughts on the Society. If you saw the Society, let me know your thoughts, because I'm curious as to whether or not you liked the show, whether or not you hated the show, whether you thought it was merely okay, if you even bothered watching more than one episode. Let me know in the comments. And this has been Jack Everett, and I will talk at you later. Thanks for watching.